KVU HD3 Stevensville and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. It's 4 o'clock. Welcome to Montana's only statewide sports talk show. Broadcast on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television.
I like football!
Now, the 2017 Radio Sports Broadcaster of the Year on the show with back-to-back Montana Broadcaster Association awards for sports coverage and award-winning sports journalism. Here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. Pete Alonso won the home run derby, but Vlad Guerrero Jr. won the day. Big Sky Conference Scholar Athlete Awards announced. A preview around the Big Sky, the Skyline Sports MT preseason all-conference favorites, and a whole bunch of other stuff, including the NFL Team of the Decade. It is Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio and SWX Montana Television. Hi, how are you? Great to be with you. Thanks for being here with us on this Tuesday afternoon. Hope you are having a wonderful day. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris is at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. In July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday. That's right, 30 years, and they are celebrating this month by offering up to 30% off, yes, indeed, 30% of MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna or Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Go to Kurtz Polaris all month for their 30-year anniversary sale. Online, 1029ESPN.com. You can listen to us there anytime you would like to via the stream. It is the Listen Live tab. Trying to make it intuitive for you there at the World Wide Web. 1029ESPN.com, the stream brought to us by Opportunity Bank. Your local bank, your opportunity. If you'd like to call, you can do that as well. 329-1899, 329-1899, the phone number. All guests join us via the Raggage Brothers RV phone line. We're going to get into a lot of things today. I'm looking forward to this. First of all, here in about 10 minutes, right off the top of the show, so close to the top of the show, we are going to have Truman Tolson, who is the president of the MPPA, that is the Montana Protective Police Association. They are having a fundraiser in benefit of the Special Olympics down at the Linda Vista Golf Course this Friday. So he's going to come in, talk to us about that here in just a couple minutes. We are going to get into an epic home run derby last night. We'll talk a bit about the derby. We'll talk about a bit about the derby's place in the baseball landscape now compared to years past, and if it has increased merely the profile or if it has increased in importance as well. We'll get into a little bit of NFL stuff. We got a fun NFL announcement for you today. We're excited to let you know, and along with that, we'll be going through the NFL.com top 10 teams of the decade of the 2010 through 2019, I guess, or is that how they do it, or 2011 through 2020? I guess it couldn't be that because we haven't hit 2020 yet. So we'll go through and see where we agree, where we disagree with the list that they gave to us. In the next hour, we have some news for you from around the Big Sky Conference. Colter's been hard at it here. The Big Sky Conference Scholar Athlete of the Week, Scholar Athlete of the Year awards, both in Montana and Montana State, were announced, so we will get into those, and also a little preview of some of the kids who might be your Big Sky. Let's put it like this: Big Sky Conference preseason All-American selections. We won't go through all of them, but a lot of them that are there, some high school stuff as well. And then, of course, tonight, the All-Star Game from Cleveland, Ohio. We will have that for you right here on ESPN Radio as soon as we're done. We'll send you out there for the All-Star Game, which, to me, is the best non-conference or non-postseason baseball game of the year. I like it more than any baseball game all season long. Maybe if you're coming down to it, like to get a wild card spot, to get a playoff spot at game 160, 161, 162, those are great too. But if you're talking to me about an individual game, in a game that is made up of individual players more than it is team, give me the best players that you got, and the All-Star Game brings that, and it's still a sport that can be played in an actual legitimate, professional manner where you're actually trying to win a game at the All-Star Game. So I love the All-Star Game every year. Looking forward to this tonight. Hi, Colter. How are you, bud?
Great. Bald face.
Yep, still working at it.
Still working at it. No, feeling good. Did some more sweatshop sweat cycle today. We got to get you in there. Gives you a new pep in your step. My back is feeling much better. I was having some back problems.
Yeah, you were.
Not at all. They're all gone.
Okay.
My torn knee is feeling much better.
All you got to do to fix a torn knee is just ride the cycle as hard and fast as you can.
It's true, though, because the motion, it helps strengthen those ligaments.
They will take you into the PT folks will always tell you that. You got to work it out, right?
I'll tell you a quick funny story.
Okay.
First of all, every guy out there that still holds the notion to be true that, hey, I played varsity basketball in high school. I could whip any woman, whether she's in the WNBA or Division I. You're wrong. It's not the case. It might have been the case, might have, some 15 or 20 years ago. It's not the case anymore. Women's basketball has come a long ways. But Kelly Cole, who is a former Big Sky Conference MVP for the Lady Grizz, Robin Selvig's second to last season. It was the last time the Lady Grizz went to the tournament.
Yes.
When it was here, the Big Sky tournament was here in Missoula, and then they advanced to the NCAA tournament. Kelly Cole was Big Sky MVP that year, but she's from Bozeman, and she used to work out at the gym I used to work at. And so we used to play pickup hoops all the time, became friends, and she was always like, yeah, guard me, make me better. She's about 5'10", so I'm 6'1", so it's a good, matchup. I could use some strength. She's a good ball handler. She can pull up jumper, whatever. So we're playing. I'm Gardner, going all out. And she crosses me up on the baseline and hits a little step back in my face. But I plant my knee wrong, and I tear the sucker. PCL, MCL, partial tears, meniscus, little fray, whatever. At this moment in my life, I'm trying to get Skyline Sports rolling. I'm working part-time at the Ridge Athletic Club, so I don't have any health insurance. And I'm about to get on the health care, whatever. But at that moment, I didn't have anything. So I was like, okay, I can't go to the doc. But it's just a small lesson that you can't just play bully ball. These girls will.
There and you're going to get shook.
These girls will hurt you. I was watching the WNBA the other night. I mean, women's athletics has come a long ways, as primary evidence by the Women's World Cup this last weekend and Coco Gauff and all the tremendous tennis that's been played at Wimbledon. And every sport across the board has improved exponentially. And that's what you'd expect after, Title IX being enacted some 40, 45 years ago. It's reached a real humming point where now it's completely legitimate across the board, pretty much any sport. But basketball has improved more than any other thing. And I think that the reason is that people used to try to compare men's and women's basketball, and they would say, well, girls just don't play above the rim. Well, that's right. And the women's game accepted that about 10 years ago, and now they don't. They just play straight skill. And you watch in the Big Sky Conference, you got girls like Savannah Smith who are 5'5", girls like Taylor Pierce who are 5'4". There's no such thing as the rim. It doesn't matter. They're shooting 15 threes a game, and they are raining. And they run so many pick and pops and so many crazy actions that it's a completely different game than it was, and it's a completely different game than the men's game, too. So regardless, what I'm saying is, good job. Go to Sweat Cycle. If you tear your knee playing against the former Big Sky MVP, you can go get your knee right with a little Sweat Cycle.
Okay.
So shout out to the girls down there that are getting me right.
Very good. I'm glad you were in there, Coulter. I did not do that today. I did take a look at the camper. The camper is about 3.5, 4 weeks into its flipping process. Tina and I trying to flip a camper, and by Tina and I mean Tina. I am just, there holding the kids at bay, trying to keep them under the fray. So we went and looked at how are we going to patch the leak? How are we going to do this and that? So it's been a very big day for me. Very exciting stuff going on for me today. Coulter, Truman is here, so why don't you run out there and go grab him? We'll bring him in here and talk to him here real quick. It'll be
good.
We usually try and pull this stuff off in mid-segment, but in between segments. But because we got a guy coming in right here, right now, we'll go get him. And we've had folks, representatives of the sheriff's office, the police department, the fire department, as well over the course of the years on this show. And always enjoy having these folks in and talking to them because they're just unequivocally doing some good stuff and even extra professional things without, beyond the bounds of what they do every day to help us take care, keep us safe and all of that kind of stuff. And then they're giving back as well. So we'll look forward to talking to him. If you didn't see the home run derby last night, completely phenomenal. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I'll tell you what, Vlad Guerrero is, I don't know if I can say for sure that he was my favorite player of all time, but I can't think of another player just off the top of my head that I loved more than Vladimir Guerrero Sr. and his son, Vlad Guerrero Jr., put on an absolute show. He's only been in the bigs like 2 months. He got called up. He has hit 8 home runs. He hit 29 in the first session in his first opportunity, 29 again in the second session last night, and absolutely went bombs away. And if nothing else, it was an absolute show for the people. And so if you go watch the highlights between now and about 20 minutes from now, because we're going to get ourselves into the home run derby and where that stands as well. Now, though, however, Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio and SWX Montana Television and YouTube, we are happy to welcome in from the Montana Protective Police Association, the president of the MPPA, Truman Tolson. Truman, how are you? Thanks so much for being here.
Great. I am a past president. I'm not the current president, though. But anyway, thanks for having me here, guys.
President Emeritus of the MPPA and spokesperson, so that's pretty good. I mean, all that matters is how do you get on the show, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Truman?
That is definitely.
Okay, very good. Hey, Truman, let's talk about this. I want to get into the golf tournament that you're having down at Larchmont on Friday and all the things associated with it. But first, what is the MPPA? I mean, it's not the police force as such. So what is it, and what are you guys up to?
The MPPA stands for the Montana Police Protective Association, and we are an association that covers the majority of all the major cities and a few of the minor cities out here in Montana. And I'm representing them on behalf of the MPPA Foundation in this first annual law enforcement torch run golf tournament.
And so talk to us about we'll get to the golf tournament torch run. Where are we at with this? What's this about?
Yeah, this is a great thing. I am the assistant director for the law enforcement torch run for Western Montana, and the board decided to try to give this a go. This is the first annual golf tournament, and it's going to be at Fairmont Hot Springs this coming Friday, July 12th. And we're hoping to get a great turnout. We've got some prizes for people to win. It's a 4-person scramble. Registration starts at 11 and shotgun at 1.
Okay.
Tell us about what you're raising money for.
It is for Special Olympics Montana. The law enforcement torch run is the fundraising and public awareness portion of Special Olympics Montana. And we're hoping to raise funds in that to assist the thousands of athletes across the state of Montana and participate in year-round activities.
Now, I mean, the Special Olympics is something that's, near and dear to Coulter and I. Obviously, we talk about sports, but we know that there's, the Special Olympics across the board nationally in the state of Montana does just phenomenal things around. But how did the MPPA specifically get linked into the Special Olympics? Because it seems like, he could have picked any number of things to maybe, raise funds for. Why the Special Olympics?
Well, the MPPA has been the premier law enforcement sponsor for Special Olympics Montana law enforcement torch run for over 25 years. And I think it really goes back to our previous executive director, Jerry Williams, who was a retired Butte servable sergeant. And Jerry was one of the directors of the law enforcement torch run a number of years ago. And it is just a great fit for us throughout the state. We do a lot of different fundraisers, from polar plunges to Tip-A-Cops to you name it, we'll do it for Special Olympics.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
It's a great cause, but I'm interested a little bit about just police work in the state of Montana. What do you think's unique about police work in a state that is so rural like Montana?
It is, in that being a police officer in the state of Montana, it has its pluses and minuses. The plus in that is that you're in Montana.
Yeah, right.
No doubt.
Right.
The minus is sometimes you got to work when you want to go fishing or hunting.
We were just talking about that right before the show started.
We were just. I should have been a fishing game warden. That should have been the path that I could be on the river all the time.
Yeah, we have some friends in that that are game wardens.
Yeah.
And we actually have a game warden on the law enforcement torch run executive committee. And so, it's just one of those things in that we like to get out and do things in that for the athletes. And It's just a perfect fit. It really, truly is.
Truman Tolson in studio with us. He is the former president of the Montana Protective Police Association, the MPPA, but still active and involved with that. And this week, you talked about the torch run that they're doing there at Fairmont, but there's also a golf scramble and fundraiser at Linda Vista this Friday here in Missoula. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so talk to us about this, a four-person scramble with all of the fixings that you might have at a nice scramble event.
I would love to tell you, Nat, that I have a lot of the details on that, but I don't have those with me. I know that, the one for the torch run is specifically at Fairmont Hot Springs.
Yep. And I think what I got here in front of me, and you can tell me if it sounds like I'm getting this right, but it's a four-person scramble, and there's an entry fee for either by player or by group. And if you are a senior citizen or an active retired military member, your fee is actually a little bit cheaper. You can go down there and check all of that stuff out, I think, on Friday as well. And again, all proceeds for the Special Olympics. So you maybe can't get all the way out to Fairmont Hot Springs. You can stay a little more local and do it that way. But that's those, working in tandem together, pretty cool. Online, right? MPPAonline.org. What can the folks find on the website there when they go?
You can find a listing of the member cities.
Okay.
The board of directors for MPPA. There's training information there at events that are coming up, that sort of thing.
And what's the best part of all this for you, Truman, to be part of the MPPA?
For me, and that has always been in conjunction with the law enforcement torch run, is helping the athletes out here in Montana.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Truman, we appreciate you coming down here. Thanks so much for taking the time, telling us about the torch run, about the golf tournaments that are going on, and the MPPA in general. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks got it. Truman Tolson, boys and girls. Quick break. We'll be back with the Home Run Derby and its place in the landscape of baseball today. Next.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Alpine Touch has mastered keeping your taste buds happy by spicing up anything you throw on the grill this summer. Now, let Alpine Touch keep your mouth watering whenever you want their new sunflower shooters. Their new jumbo sunflower seeds seasoned with Alpine Touch's world-famous all-purpose seasonings. And Alpine Touch sunflower shooters will be available all summer at every Osprey baseball home game. Available at retail locations around the state and online at alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
At the Montana Club, our goal is to create a menu of mouth-watering food with variety to satisfy any craving. From the garden fresh ingredients in our salads to our succulent, perfectly grilled Montana Club Angus steaks, we take pride in every detail that goes into preparing your food. Top off your meal with a premium cocktail, wine, or microbrew. Come as you are and satisfy your craving with our home-style breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce two of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get up to $150 instant rebate on 4 backcountry MT or AT tires, or $50 on 4 road control passenger tires. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
When you need a bank to help ramp up your savings strategy, look to your local bank, Opportunity Bank of Montana. Build confidence in your financial future when you create a rainy day cushion or take care of the nest egg you already have. Opportunity Bank offers options from basic savings to money market accounts and certificates with competitive rates. There's nothing like the feeling of progress, so let's get started today. Come see us at Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com. Member FDIC.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here with Josh from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident and need help dealing with the insurance company, you should give The Advocates a call.
It doesn't cost anything at all to call, and I'd be happy to talk with you about your situation. You don't want to have to be dealing with contacting the insurance companies and setting up your claim. We can do that for you from start to finish. We'll take the hassle out of the process so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give Josh a call, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers, but you deserve an advocate.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. Taryn Miller and Bobby Moorhead have been named the University of Montana's recipients of the Big Sky Conference Scholar Athlete Awards for 2018 and 19. Each Big Sky school selects one female and one male who displays all-around excellence. The recipient must graduate with a 3.2 GPA or better. Miller capped her soccer career by leading the Grizzlies to the NC2A tournament in November following their first Big Sky Conference Tournament championship since 2011. She was one of 5 Montana players voted to the all-tournament team. She was a first-team All-Big Sky Conference selection each of the last 2 seasons.
And the Defensive Player of the Year last year. Moorhead finished his Grizz men's basketball career by playing in a program record 134 games. He started 73 of them. He earned the Grizzlies' Internal Defensive Player of the Year honors each of the last 2 years, serving as UM's stopper during a stretch that saw the Grizz win a school record 52 combined games over the last 2 seasons.
A pair of track stars earned Montana State Scholar Athlete Awards. Elizabeth Kreider earned the Women's Award for the Bobcats after scoring points in the Big Sky Indoor and Outdoor Championships in the 400 meters while earning a bachelor's degree in Natural Resources and Rangeland Ecology with a 4.0 GPA.
And finally, on the men's side, Alex Lewis set the school record in the long jump at 25.2. He also graduated with a master's degree in accounting.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Vlad Guerrero, Pete Alonso. Tell me baseball's going the way of the Buffalo. Tatanka? Out of your mind, it's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris is at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. It has been 30 years that Kurtz Polaris has been in business. That's right, 30 years this month. So they're celebrating by offering 30% off. That's right, up to 30% off MSRP all month long on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna or Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris all July for Kurt's 30th anniversary sale. On Twitter, at Gus Tutel, yours truly, at 102.9 ESPN, and at Skyline Sports MT, covering everything all the time right over there. Coulter, the home run derby last night was spectacular. I have very much approve of and enjoyed the new format. Usually when a new format comes along, it's met with, disdain. People give me the old way. They don't like the new stuff. And then usually, often it'll grow on them, or maybe people just hate it. From the first time this happened, maybe 5 years ago, something like that, when they started using the clock instead of the outs, and when they started giving you an extra 30 seconds if you hit something over, I think it's 440. If you get over a 440 home run in terms of length, you get an extra 30 seconds. You get a pause to catch your breath and all that. Of course, it's a nice little moment for Gatorade to get an on-screen sponsorship as they have a kid run out a giant Gatorade towel and a Gatorade to the guy immediately. I mean, I don't know what they're spending for that 30-second commercial within the content of what they're up to, but they've nailed it. Well done by them.
I want to know, during the NBA playoffs, the NBA playoffs was on ESPN and ABC, and a little bit on TNT too, but the finals was on ESPN and ABC. And there was an on-screen graphic for the entire duration of the NBA playoffs, no matter what channel it was on, for YouTube television. What does YouTube pay to undercut the cable company and say, buy our streaming service? You're watching us on cable. Cut your cable. Or I guess you're watching us on your other streaming service, so choose us. But either way, it just seems like you'd have to pay so much money to get your competition to put you on the screen.
Why is it? But the competition isn't putting you on the screen.
Well, I guess that's true because ESPN has always been a subscription channel. People just don't understand that.
That's
the,
right.
the dual revenue model.
It's no different than Chevy coming in and saying, whatever, putting their name or logo on the screen the whole time. Although you're right, because Chevy isn't the method in which you use to watch the basketball game, so there is that additional tie to it. We digress. Vladimir Guerrero, 29 times in the first round. 29 times in the second round. The most ever was Josh Hamilton, 28. And Vlad, in his first ever appearance at 20 years old, been in the bigs 2 seconds, goes 29 in back-to-back rounds and is absolutely thumping the pill not really all over the yard, straight to left field. Just hammering it. Let me tell you something, Colter. I said this while you were out getting Truman. Vladimir Guerrero Sr. is right there for me as my favorite player of all time. Love Vlad Sr. And the fact that we got a kid in here who's doing – now, I will say Vladimir Guerrero Jr., they fed that kid well coming up. I mean, he is a stout man. He's a much bigger guy than his dad was. But the swing is still – just everything you could ever ask for at the plate, and he gets up there.
It's very much like his old man. He hits with his wrists.
It looks exactly like it. It's actually a little bit more explosive. It is a little less fluid, but how could you be more fluid than Vlad Sr.? Anyway, spectacular to watch him last night, and exciting, and all of those things. Then he goes into a hit off, a swing off with Jock Pederson, who, by the way, I would pay to watch him hit a baseball any day of the week, too. Thank you very much. I mean, to watch that. Pederson gets up there with this kind of baby face and young kid. And we know, we've seen him enough now. And then in boxing, there's some guys who just have bricks in their gloves. You know what I mean? Like when they hit, it just is harder. They're able to, whether it's power, whether it's just heavier. Jock Pederson hitting a baseball is heavier than anybody else the way he does it, and it is fun to watch. And then they get into the finals, and Pete Alonso. Where did this guy come from? 24 years old, 30 home runs, dude. 30 bombs already in his rookie year, and we are at the All-Star break. He's got 30 on the books. I mean, it's just amazing. Now, remember it wasn't the Aaron Judge. I think he had like 32 or 34 even going into the All-Star break, and then really slowed his pace in the second half, and pitchers started catching up to him a little bit and all that kind of stuff. But Alonso, phenomenal, and Alonso, with like 20 seconds left, walks it off, wins 23-22, and is actually the home run derby. Who won the home run derby, though, last night? Guerrero or Pete Alonso?
See, that I like the new format. I agree, except for when it gets to the finals, because I feel like if you put on a show, I mean, Vlad Guerrero Jr. hit more home runs in a single round than anybody ever has twice.
Right, and then he went like 96 total?
91 total home runs. I mean, the all-time round record is 28, and he went 29 twice, including then having another 8 or 9 home runs in the hit-off, the sudden death where you get 3 swings. Him and Jock Pederson each hit a home run on 3 swings twice and had to go to a third sudden death. So the amount of swings that he took, hundreds, and that's exhausting. And so then to get 22 in the finals and lose, credit to Pete Alonso for pulling it out, but I feel like I love the format except in the finals. I wish they could give maybe like a total home runs weighted advantage or something like that, like a points. Like if you've hit, do the math, call it 65 or 70 home runs before the finals like Vlad Guerrero Jr. did, you get 7 points. And Pete Alonso, he's hit 50 home runs, so he gets 5 points. And then each home run's worth a point. So you have like maybe not a huge advantage, but you get a little bit of an advantage for putting on the show that you did.
Yeah.
Because what is the number one thing everybody remembers from the home run derby? It's not who wins the finals. It's who hits the most home runs in a round. And the fact that he broke the single round record twice. I mean, it's like the announcer said last night. Josh Hamilton is a story that was such a crazy shooting star story that then kind of just fell flat. You know, Josh Hamilton was this prodigy who fell flat on his face and was smoking crack, and then made this tremendous comeback, and for a brief moment in time was the best player in baseball. Mm-hmm. And that came to an absolute head when he hit those 28 home runs. And it's like the announcer said last night, never thought that was going to be broken. And the fact that he broke it in the same derby in 2 different rounds.
And his first derby.
I just feel like that guy deserves to walk off with the trophy.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. However, I mean, you can't short Pete Alonso either, because it's not as if Vlad ran out of gas and hit 6 in the finals. He hit 22. And Pete Alonso got up there and hit 23. And he also, as far as it goes, has 30 actual home runs playing in a baseball season. This is first. I mean, it was a blast to watch last night, no doubt. 210-1 is 102.9 ESPN. 329-1899 if you'd like to call, talk to us about the Derby. You're certainly welcome to. Area code 406. That's the whole state, if you're keeping track. 329-1899. What I want to know, though, Coulter, then is this. The home run derby certainly gets as much attention as it's ever gotten. It is platformed better than it's ever been platformed in terms of having its own night and a full 3-hour telecast, radio broadcast dedicated to it. And that in and of itself has happened for quite a while, but it seems to be occupying a larger and larger, I don't want to use the word importance because that's part of the question I want to ask, but it's certainly occupying a larger domain of the psyche of certainly All-Star Weekend, and I think the significance of, you know, winning it, what the trophy means to the guys. I mean, they were into it last night, right? I mean, these guys are, you know, they're not talking to each other. They're running off. They're yelling. They're bat flipping. They're doing the whole thing to, you know, to kind of get up to do it. So I guess my question is the home run derby in fact more important now than it's ever been, or is it merely done better? Does it hold a greater amount of space in the web, television, radio, etc., that now we just kind of are locked into it more?
Well, for a while, and you mentioned Aaron Judge hitting 30-plus home runs before the All-Star break, mm-hmm. and then he went out and put on a show in the home run derby, mm-hmm. and then he didn't. I think he hit 3 home runs in the month of July after that, and that was the next in a long line of sluggers that ruined their swing. It's just like when you talk about playing in a golf scramble. When you got it all locked in and you're just trying to hit the fairway, you're going to be a lot better than when you go out there and you're the 4th guy on your team and, you know, our boy Riley Corcoran hits it right down the middle and then you're swinging out your back of your shoes. It messes up your swing. It's just like the repetitive nature of hitting 85-mile-per-hour fastballs, even if it's just for one day, mm-hmm. that can get you out of a rhythm. And I think that back when the home run derby first hit its plateau in the early 90s, when guys like King Griffey Jr. were doing it with the backwards hat, Barry Bonds is doing it with his dangling earring, those guys were sort of impervious to it, but it also wasn't such a rapid-fire, strenuous deal. Like it was kind of less specific.
Because there were outs. So you didn't need to go at any speed, whatever. You just wait for the one you wanted and hammer it.
So you're not swinging as hard as you can for multiple minute stretches all the time.
Yeah.
You know, there was I remember when Mark McGwire was at his peak and he brought his own, I think he brought his high school coach to throw BP, and that was kind of the first where you brought your own BP guy. I mean, it was kind of just like BP guys would just throw BP. Not everybody brought their own dude.
So is it more important now?
So what I'm saying is it's just way different, because most of the best power hitters in baseball right now are also the young guys. So it's intriguing for them to participate in this event because it's so good for their brand. How much more of a star did Jock Peterson become last night? Did did Pete Alonso become last night? Vladimir Guerrero already has the name recognition, but he got to be on the national stage.
Exposure.
Right,
Yeah,
he got to be on the national stage for the first time. So that's good for you, even if it screws up your swing for a couple weeks. Whereas when you're Albert Pujols, like Pujols did not want to do the home run derby when he was at his peak in St. Louis because he'd done it when he was younger, and it's just not conducive if you're trying to hit 300. Some of these guys aren't. They're just trying to hit bombs. But I think when you have the continuity between the young guys also being the premier power hitters and the intrigue of participating in this thing, it's just the same thing as why does LeBron James and Russell Westbrook not just do the slam dunk contest? Because first of all, there's no dunks left to do. And second of all, if you're LeBron, you have nothing to win because you're either going to win or you're not going to win. And everybody's going to be like, well, why didn't LeBron win? Mm-hmm. And it's not quite the same with a skill like hitting a home run, but I do think that now it's become more fun because more of the better power hitters in the league are doing it because more of the better power hitters in the league are young.
I think you're right about that. I think there's a lot of power hitters that are not doing it, but the young guys do, and that's good. I'm fine with that. I really don't care who the 8 guys are up there. In the NBA, well, you could say on the dunk contest, well, why isn't LeBron or Russell Westbrook doing it? In the home run derby, other than maybe like a Mike Trout, you would sit there and go, well, why? You don't really know who, where's Aaron Judge? Okay, maybe he's injured. I know Christian Yelich was on the tab. He pulled out kind of late of the deal. But by and large, I mean, you can look up who's got the most home runs, but you're not going to sit here and argue, well, this guy from the Oakland Athletics who's up here. Sure, let's see. Let's go to work, big fella. Let's see what happens. Here's the thing I think, though.
Judge didn't do it last night, right?
No.
That's a great example of a guy that did it, got his shine, but then also screwed up his swing and didn't do it.
Yeah, and I mean, he's been injured too up until about a week and a half ago, so that may have played into it. I don't know all the reasons, but I think it's more important than it's ever been insofar as the guys, in fact, care if they win. And not that they care if they win more. I mean, I think you always care if you win or are happy to win or whatever. But it's a bigger deal. It's a bigger point of emphasis. It will carry you further. Your star shines brighter and has more momentum if you end up winning the home run derby than it ever has. And so it's more important in that respect. Obviously, it's not important in any sort of meaningful way per se, other than like a talking point. However, though, I do think that like the 3-point contest in basketball, I think the 3-point contest, me personally, I think it's better and more interesting than the dunk contest now.
It's the best of the all-star competitions in any sport.
Maybe.
I like it better than the home run derby too because the best guys do it and there's no real fear of screwing yourself up because you just grab the ball and shoot it. And if you can grab the ball and you can shoot it, I mean, if you're Larry Legend and you can just grab it and shoot it, you don't even have to jump off the ground. You're ready to roll every year.
So I think that they're. But the other reason, though, that the 3-point contest, and I don't know if it has overtaken the dunk contest in terms of, shine, if it's cooler to win that than it is dunk. I like it more. You like it more. Point being is this. It also is representative of the sport. What has happened in basketball? It's moved from getting up and above the rim and doing all that stuff, though, of course, that will always be part of the game, to can you hit from everywhere all the time? And that is the test of that. What is baseball now? Home runs and strikeouts, right? With more home runs in the first half than in any first half in the history of Major League Baseball or whatever it is, and more strikeouts as well. Well, what is the home run contest doing now? Why are guys hitting more? Because that's the way the game has gone. That's the way they're teaching the swing. That's what everybody's into. And the whole, that whole, what is it, the 90s chicks dig the long ball? Wasn't that the big, promotion that baseball did when it was, Sosa and McGuire and who I don't know if Canseco got in on that whole thing, whatever it is. That was true then, but that's not the way the game was played. And what you see now is that is the way baseball is played now. And so guys who can hit these monster home runs deep and far and over again are representative of the game in a way that they weren't before. So I don't think it's more important per se. It would be to the individual. The home run derby is not more important, but it's more indicative, and I find that interesting.
There's a great article in Sports Illustrated that's probably about a month, 6 weeks ago. It was kind of a 1/3 of the season update. And it was talking about a lot of the statistical anomalies that are occurring right now in baseball. And if anybody watched Rob Manfred's statement the other day, he's been accused of juicing the balls, and the balls have been flying out of the park at an absolute record rate. And I think that the total Major League Baseball number for home runs is on pace to be broken by almost 600 home runs cumulatively between all the teams, which is ridiculous in itself. But one of the parts in this article was just about the analytics, the shifts, and all the things that have gone into the uber specialization of the game, but also the prevalence and necessity of hitting fly balls. Forever, especially before, almost everybody in the league now has a relatively new stadium. Back in the day, you might be playing at, the old Giant Stadium in New York or Candlestick Park or places that have seriously 450-foot center field fences, Like that's why Willie Mays is such an amazing player. When you watch those old highlights, this guy is running for over 100 feet to catch some of these balls because the outfields are just so cavernous.
You had to. Yeah.
And now you have all these little bandbox stadiums where, it's become so specific that you have a stadium that has a 340-foot power alley down the left field line. You're trying to sign a guy specifically who can hit the ball over the fence in that spot. That's how specific it's come. But also, everybody in the league has a scout on everybody. And so you know exactly where Ryan Tutel is going to hit the ball and where he's not. And so you can shift all the time. So hitting the ball low and hard, like every coach in the history of baseball would have taught you for more than 100 years, is no longer conducive to success. And so this article was talking about how the traditional power hitters were always the hulking guys, right? And, make no mistake, Josh Bell's 6'4", 225. He's a big dude. Pete Alonso, he's 6'2", 230.
6'3",
big dude. Mike Trout is obviously, he's an Adonis. He is a huge man. But you also have guys like Christian Yelich, who doesn't even weigh 200 pounds. Cody Bellinger, who probably doesn't even weigh 180 pounds.
Yeah.
But these guys have figured out. Cody Bellinger is a great example, right? Cody Bellinger, I think, hit 2 home runs in high school. And then his first year in the minors, he hit 4. And then he figured out how to hit the ball in the air with control. And all of a sudden, the ball started flying out of the park. And now the guy has 30 home runs at the All-Star break, even though he's not built like a power hitter. And so much of that is convincing yourself that it's a good idea to hit the ball in the air and daring people to chase it down and or having it go over the fence.
Right.
I think it's having a huge impact on the game. But I also think it's entertaining because now it's not just the Mark McGwires of the world that are putting up these crazy home run numbers. It's just guys that look like normal baseball players instead of Paul Bunyan.
Yeah. It is Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. On the other side, an announcement that you're going to want to hear and a assessment of the top 10 teams from the last decade in the NFL. Just let you in on a little secret. If you're a Seahawks fan, you're going to want to hear this.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Summer is in full swing, and your favorite coffee drink is calling to be blended into a creamy, cold Floco Frappe. Get it made with your favorite all-natural Floco flavor, all blended up into coffee perfection. Stop by any Floco location for a delicious frappe today, and go to FlorenceCoffeeCo.com.
The best flavor under the big sky, Lawrence Coffee Company.
Take summer by storm with a new Polaris off-road vehicle. During the summer sales event, rebates go as high as $2,000 and financing is as low as 3.99%. Live your life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on our legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. Whatever you're looking for, now is the time to take your pick from the off-road's best-selling lineup. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $2,000 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Summer Sales Event at Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday, and they are celebrating with unprecedented savings on select parts and accessories with the purchase of a new Polaris off-road vehicle, Beta or Husqvarna dirt bike, or any of their new line of Crest pontoon boats. Go to Kurtz Polaris for details. Offers valid in U.S. through 7/23/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
More bedrooms, a big yard, better commute. Whatever your reason to buy a new home, it's the right reason. In a tough housing market, the smartest thing you can do is pre-qualify for a loan before you start looking. Farmers State Bank makes it easier than ever to start the loan process with online checklists, forms, and calculators. Your dream home is out there. Get started today at farmersebank.com. Farmers State Bank, an equal housing lender and member FDIC.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula. Now from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Who's the best team of the decade? NFL.com thinks they know. When you go to the Hall of Fame, do you get a bust you take home with you? I'm looking at Kurt Warner. He's got the Hall of Fame, like this trophy, like this angel trophy thing, and then also like his own bust behind him. Did they make two of them?
Maybe he just made himself a replica.
That doesn't even sound like Kurt Warner to me. Making a replica of his own Hall of Fame thing to put on his mantle.
Maybe Kurt Warner's just had you tricked this whole time.
It could have.
I don't know. I'm a cynic. I think anybody that seems like they're squeaky clean and nice is either lying or completely self-congratulatory.
What do you think about me?
I think you're authentic. That's why you're my idol.
An authentic jerk. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We're broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday. That's now, boys and girls. 30 years they've been in business, and they're celebrating by offering up to 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna and Beta dirt bikes as well, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month for Kurt's 30-year anniversary sale. Let's start with the announcement. Let people know. I'm happy about this. I think you should be happy about this. We have been working on this for a little while, kind of behind the scenes. And we got to make sure we got all our technical P's and Q's, but Tommy assures me that we're going to be just fine. The ESPN Radio in Western Montana, 102.9 ESPN Radio, is going to be the brand new affiliate of the Seattle Seahawks Football Club this forthcoming season. So we're excited about that, excited to welcome the Seahawks on board onto this radio station. Steve Rabel and Warren Moon have been doing the call together for years and years, and are one of the, I think, most well-respected, and certainly within the market that is Seattle, Western Washington. I mean, Steve Rabel walks on water. Obviously a former player. He's a newscaster. You know, he does the evening news, not the sports, Coulter. He's a newscaster in Seattle, and then of course does the football games for the Seahawks. But we are excited to have them on every week. We'll be doing it, Thursdays, Mondays, Sundays, all the way through. So looking forward to having them on. And so I know that the Seahawks have a large following in Western Montana, reasonably so. I think they're a team, to me, that coming into this season has a a lot of I think they have a lot of potential on that team and a lot of question marks. They're one of the teams that I feel like I have the worst feel for because of all the turnover that they've had.
I think it's just because you're biased because you're a fan of theirs. They're not going to be good.
Coulter, let's go back a year. What was their record last season?
10-6.
Okay.
What's their record been every year Russell Wilson's been their starting quarterback except one?
10 wins in playoffs,
10
wins in playoffs.
10 wins, yeah.
Right. So we do know, so they're a 10-win team, which is not bad.
Right, but they have the least overall talent that they've ever had, combined with the fact that their division is way better.
You're wrong about the Seattle Seahawks this season.
I shouldn't say they're going to be bad. They're not. You're right. They're not going to be bad. They're going to be right down the middle. They're going to be a 8 or 9 win team, and they're not going to make the playoffs.
I think they will make the playoffs. I think they're a better team than what you think they're going to be, and I think that Pete Carroll, as
are they going to win the division?
Coach, no, the Rams will probably win.
Okay, so then who are they better than out of the 3 powers in the NFC North? None of those 3 teams.
Well, certainly they're better than the Lions.
No, but the other 3. They're not better than the Bears, the Packers, or the Vikings.
To suggest the Vikings are a power is ludicrous.
The Vikings won 14 games 2 years ago.
Ludicrous. First of all, I do think the NFC North has a real chance at cannibalization. We certainly have seen 2 wildcard teams come out of the same division before, but it's rare that happens because you got to play each other every day, slight exaggeration, okay, but twice during the season, double everybody else that you are going to play. And so I think that there's potential there. I think wins, I think you can certainly expect the Seahawks to be better than Arizona and San Francisco, and there's an argument to be made that won't be the case, and I understand that. I mean, it's not so clear-cut as it might be, but here's the thing. We've talked about this before, how good Seattle was before Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor and, of course, Russell Wilson came onto the scene. You're like, okay, well, what is this team? Who are these guys? And all of a sudden they came out and started balling. Well, guess what? You're like, well, that was a great draft. Somebody else should have drafted Richard Sherman, which certainly they should have. Somebody else should have drafted Cam Chancellor. Okay, that's fine. But
they developed them too.
Yes, they did. And you know what happened last year? Their defense, with a bunch of people that no one knew who they were, by and large, other than Bobby Wagner. Earl Thomas, remember, out, week 4? Something like that, very early in the season, was a top 10 defense in the league with no one that you can name outside of Shaq Griffin and Bobby Wagner. I mean, that's it. And so Frank Clark's gone. Doesn't matter. They draft another defensive end. And by the way, the guys that they've gotten in there, by and large, they don't have turnover now compared to what they've had. I think they're going to be a much better defensive team than what you think. And, I mean, the biggest wild card in the draft they probably took, DK Metcalf. If he's what he looks like he should have been in college, he's going to be the rookie of the year and take the league by absolute storm. If he is what he was in college, he's not going to play. So that's a very I don't know how to assess him. They take him in the second round. But that is the ideal Seahawks pick, to take the guy with all the potential in the world, who has the story, who's got the back, and go, come here, bud. Let's light you on fire and let you loose. You know what I mean? And if that can happen, I think they're going to be in business. I think they're going to have a very good year. Very good year. I think they're going to have a good year. A good year, because I think they're a solid club.
For the Seahawks to make the playoffs, they got to be better than 4 teams. 3 teams. They got to be better than 3 teams. Not 4 teams. I'll throw the 49ers in there, although I think they're the most outside-looking in NFC team. The Seahawks got to be better than the Packers or the Panthers or the Falcons and maybe the 49ers. But I think that...
Or the Vikings or the Bears.
I just think the Vikings and the Bears are better. I think the Vikings, Bears, Cowboys, and Rams are all definitively better than the Seahawks.
The Minnesota
and I think
Vikings
when healthy, the Panthers
7-1 last year, and they still have a quarterback who you hate. So
they have a quarterback that I hate, but they also had so much dysfunction from injuries to Everson Griffin, who's their linchpin defensively, losing his mind. They still have elite talent across the board defensively.
They have a very good defense. Outstanding defense.
They do, and they address their issues on the offensive line. And You don't have to tell me about Kirk Cousins. I hate him.
I still like him more than you like him.
He's if you're the guy that goes on the record with the media saying, I'm a mediocre quarterback, I'm an 8-8 quarterback, I got to be better, you suck.
Okay, then. Well, so don't sit here and tell me that the Vikings are obviously better than the Seahawks.
They are.
An elite quarterback.
I still think the Vikings are better.
You can think that. But, I mean, to not include them in the group is silly.
The Bears also, I think, have the biggest chance of anybody in the NFC. The Bears and the Cowboys have the two biggest chances of the NFC to be worse than they were a year ago.
Well, sure. I mean, the Bears could easily be worse because they were 12-4 and were great, and they lost.
And they defied
expectation.
Yes,
they did. I must say, I was utterly crestfallen at the play of Mitchell Trubisky last year, which was so much better.
Remember when we watched the first preseason game? It was like week 2, but it was his first preseason game. We watched him against the Cowboys, and he completed like 18 straight passes,
yes.
and we were both like, huh?
Well, what's going on with this? With North Carolina Wolfpack or North Carolina? Tar Heel. Bad news.
All right, timeout. So we got to get back on topic here.
Okay.
I did not look at this top 10 teams of the decade before the show started.
NFL.com, top 10 teams of the decade.
I don't get it.
Here it is.
I mean, I get it kind of, but like, how you about to, I mean, I get the Jacksonville Jaguars were a memorable squad or whatever, but how you saying the Jaguars in 2017 were the 10th best team of the decade? Didn't they get a bye and win one playoff game and that's it? They were 10-6 and then they won one playoff game. They're the 10th best team in the decade.
I think a lot of people will forget that team was 10-6. I did. I couldn't believe that team that was a whisper from beating the Patriots.
Well, remember they were 10-3, or no, they were like 9-3, and then they kind of stumbled down the stretch.
Well, anyway, that was a great defense to watch, really fun, and they made the list. The last year's Kansas City Chiefs, just because of all the scoring that they had, in fact, the number 2 scoring team of the decade last year, they got at 9. The 2011 Green Bay Packers, who went 15-1, and then lost in the divisional round because they had the 32nd ranked defense in football. It's just appalling.
And they're in the top 10 teams of the decade. I mean, on this list, you got the Carolina Panthers.
15-1.
Sure. You got the Carolina Panthers at 2 and the Denver Broncos at 5. 2013 Denver Broncos at 5. 2015 Arizona Cardinals at 6. 2012 San Francisco 49ers at 7. 2011 Green Bay Packers at 8. Last year's Kansas City Chiefs and 2017 Jacksonville Jaguars. Every single team I just named, I only didn't name 3 of the teams listed. Every team I just named did not win the Super Bowl.
Well,
how many Super Bowls have been this decade?
10.
How you not have? Well, how you only have 3 champs on here?
Well, only having 3 is a very reasonable question, but also, I mean, what kind of list is a list that just lists the Super Bowl winners?
I mean, like the 2015 Carolina Panthers, I don't think they deserve to be 2. I can see how they could be at the top 10 because they're the closest team to running the table in the regular season since the Patriots.
15-1.
They were
15-1.
They started 14-0.
And went to the Super Bowl.
And they went to the Super Bowl. Okay, Cam Newton was the MVP. I'll buy them being a top 10 team of the decade. But I just, and I get like that Packers team that's ranked is because they were just so unbelievably electric on offense and so unbelievably bad on defense. I mean, Aaron Rodgers he was slanging out of his mind. I mean, what did he throw? 48 touchdowns and 5 picks that year? Something. I mean, that's a little bit of a extrapolation, but I mean, it was 45 plus and less than 10 for sure.
No question.
I think it was the number 1 quarterback rating in the history of the NFL. So I get how that could be sneaking the top 10 too, but some of these, I mean, again, the Jags got a bye as a division winner and won 1 playoff game, and I get that they almost beat the Patriots and they had, an absurd amount of sacks, but it's like, if Blake Bortles your quarterback, you're now on 10 best teams of the decade.
That argument has swayed me. You've gotten me. The number 1 team, the 2013 Seattle Seahawks, who had the best defense of the season, the first in points allowed, first in overall defense, second in point differential, 8th in scoring, and the absolute hammer to the Denver Broncos nail in the Super Bowl, 48-6, 46-8. What was it? 43-8. Excuse me. The final of that Super Bowl, which was a culmination for Seattle. It really was there in MetLife Stadium in New York. You remember that when the first potentially cold, bad weather Super Bowl and how long. And it was the perfect day and like 48 degrees at kickoff. And then the next morning, 5 inches of snow sitting there in New York. And it was just like, yep, the NFL runs the weather. That's what they're up to. So anyhow, Seattle, pretty good. Pretty good. That was a heck of a football team. I don't think that they're going to go 13-3 this year. I'm with you on that. I think they got a very reasonable shot at winning the division. And who knows? I mean, there is no question that the Rams are the best team in the NFC West. Okay? But they have moved quite a few pieces around. And I am still very much I'm not a hater. I am a doubter of Jared Goff. I think Goff is a good football player. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's in a spectacular situation with an excellent coach who's helping him along. And look, you can't begrudge him for that. And if he's going to play really well, then so be it. But they need that defense to absolutely ball out. And you sit here and you have all the question marks of what's going on with Todd Gurley and the knee down the stretch. So all I'm saying is, again, the Rams are the best team in the NFC West. I expect them. I'm picking them to win the division. But if you're going to sit here and go, signed, sealed, delivered, mark it right now, it's over. No, I'm not ready to go there with them. And I'm not saying then by default that Seattle is there, even though I do have Seattle as the next best team. I mean, who knows what Kyler Murray all of a sudden can pull out of his hat and be the next, Patrick Mahomes in terms of productivity, and it just swings the whole pendulum for the entire organization. And obviously with the return of what's his name, Zach Galifianakis? Garoppolo to the San Francisco 49ers. That was obviously a huge hit to them and their potential success, but they've gotten some young studs picking high in the draft too. So I'm just not ready to set it up that way, even though the Rams are the front runner.
Oh, I mean, yeah, you just summed up the NFL in a nutshell.
Well, okay,
let's name the teams in the NFC that can't make the playoffs.
Okay, let's do it. Let me get the list.
I think the Giants, the Redskins, the Bucks, and the Lions are the only 4 teams in the NFC that can't make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I said what I said about I don't think the Cardinals can make the playoffs. I really don't.
It would be less surprising than the other 4 teams I just named, though, because Kyler Murray could take the league by storm, and it could take 6 to 8 weeks for the league to adjust if they're running this unorthodox offense, and they might be able to just steal their way to a 6-2 start and then trip on down, go 4-4 down the stretch to get to 10 wins. I don't know. Again, anything in the league is possible.
Yeah,
and all the teams I just named. I think that even the Lions could make the playoffs. Even the Bucks could, if it all went right and everything else.
The Bucks certainly could, because they still got Jameis Winston, who I'm not ready to close the book on yet, and who? Bruce Arians.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. If everything, it's not only about what goes right for you; it's about all the things that go wrong everywhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt and Matt Stafford doesn't, the Lions are better. I mean, it's not that far away.
Yeah.
It's easy. I mean, honestly though, that's why, like, when you really look at the NFC, the 2 teams I think you could just check it off, they're not making the playoffs, are the Redskins and the Giants. Besides that, everybody's in the mix.
Yeah. All right, it's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Hour 1 in the books. Hour 2 straight ahead. Big Sky Conference Scholar Athlete Awards given out to a male and female athlete from both Montana State and the University of Montana. We'll go through that, and also maybe take a look around the Big Sky Conference, do a preseason evaluation with Skyline Sports next.
Don't mess around with Mother Nature. Your home is your biggest investment. For protection that lasts, don't trust your home to anything less than Sick and Prolux stains from Garden City Paint and Glass. Sick and Prolux stains are tough enough to take on Montana's 4 seasons, providing excellent moisture resistance for outdoor railings, decks, and outdoor furniture. Sick and Prolux exterior and interior stains. Available only at Garden City Paint and Glass in Missoula, across from the Southside McDonald's at 3217 Brook Street.
Alpine Touch makes the perfect gift this summer or any time of year. If you are traveling, bring a gift that is distinctly Montana and give your loved ones some of the best spices anywhere around. From the Alpine Touch Pick 4 Spice Pack to the All-Purpose Twin Pack to the mouth-watering sunflower shoots to Alpine Touch gift cards. Alpine Touch makes the perfect Montana present. Available at retail locations around the state or online for a limited time. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Hey everybody, here with my good friend Josh from the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, if I've been in an accident, how much is it going to cost me to hire you?
Well, we take cases on a contingency fee. And what that means for you is that if you're hurt in an accident, we only get paid if you make a recovery. You'll never owe us anything out of pocket.
What about the call for a consultation?
That's not a problem. We don't charge anything for an initial consultation, so you have absolutely nothing to risk by calling us.
If you're injured in a car accident, call the Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com.
You're a big league fan. You expect big league service. At the Desperado, you get exactly that. With 35 flat screens, ice-cold brews on tap, and Missoula's #1 wings, you're free to sit back and enjoy every pitch. This summer, make the Desperado your baseball home away from home. Cool off after work, relax on the weekends, soak in some great food and drinks, and watch your team make yet another great push for October. And hey, if yours can't do it, there's plenty of other teams and fun to go around at the Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell across from the Y.
Still emerging from your winter hibernation and need to get your bearings straight? Cruise on down to Port of Missoula for all your spring and summer needs. Come check out their men's and women's streetwear, sunglasses, and shoes from brands like Vans, Adidas, Thrasher, Volcom, and the original Port of Missoula brand. They also have all your skating needs covered, from tune-ups to fresh-made custom boards. Port of Missoula, Missoula's original board shop since 1989, on the Hip Strip, 618 South Higgins. You've played Slugbug, but have you ever played the Mountain Line game? Idling in traffic, taking a walk, you see a Mountain Line bus first. You get the point. But there's a better point. Every time the bus rolls by, there went a chance for you to roll your brand by thousands of potential customers. 12 routes, dawn to dusk, 6 days a week. The Mountain Line is everywhere. And now you can be everywhere too. Winning points is fun. Winning customers is critical. It's easy to do both with Mountain Line. Call 721-6800 to learn more today.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. Taryn Miller and Bobby Moorhead have been named the University of Montana's recipients of the Big Sky Conference Scholar Athlete Awards for 2018 and 19. Each Big Sky school selects one female and one male who displays all-around excellence. The recipient must graduate with a 3.2 GPA or better. Miller capped her soccer career by leading the Grizzlies to the NC2A tournament in November, following their first Big Sky Conference tournament championship since 2011. She was one of 5 Montana players voted to the All-Tournament team, also All-Defensive team. She was the first team All-Big Sky selection as well each of the last 2 seasons.
Also, the Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Sky last year. Moorhead was the internal Defensive Player of the Year for the Grizzlies each of the last 2 seasons. He played in a school record 134 games, including making 73 starts, and he served as UM's primary defensive stopper during a stretch that saw the Grizz win a combined 52 games in 2 seasons, making it to the big dance each year.
A pair of track stars each earned Montana State's Scholar Athlete Awards. Elizabeth Krieger earned the Women's Award for the Bobcats after scoring points at the Big Sky Indoor and Outdoor Championships in the 400 meters, while earning a bachelor's degree in natural resources and rangeland ecology with a 4.0.
And finally, Montana State Scholar Athlete of the Year, Alex Lewis. He had a 4.0 GPA while earning his master's degree in accounting.
Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
When you touch my hand and talk sweet talk, I got a knocking in my knees and a wobble in my walk, and I'm trembling. That's right, you got me shaking.
Well, you heard what they won, but who are they? The Big Sky Conference Scholar Athletes from the state of Montana. We'll tell you, it's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. They are celebrating their 30th anniversary. That's right, 30 years they've been in business, and they are giving you all the presents. That's right, 30% off MSRP in the form of 30% off on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna or Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris all month for their 30-year anniversary sale. You want to find us on the World Wide Web, 1029ESPN.com, Facebook/ESPN Missoula, SkylineSportsMT.com. At the station website, you can check out the stream. The stream is there all the time. It's there thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. And if you missed anything in the first hour of the show, check it out on the podcast. The podcast available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can listen to it wherever you get your favorite podcasts from. Favorite podcasting platform, the Tutel Nuanez podcast is there. It's there thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Coulter, Taryn Miller, and Bobby Moorhead from the University of Montana, the Big Sky Conference Scholar Athlete Award winners. Elizabeth Krieger and Alex Lewis from Montana State getting the same award at their respective schools. Outline for the folks exactly what this is, because it's an on the field, off the field, in the classroom kind of all-around thing, and it's a big award to win.
This is basically the top academic/athletic senior, male and female, from each of the Big Sky Conference schools. So there's a male and female Scholar Athlete of the Year recognized by the Big Sky Conference from every school in the Big Sky. So these are the young men and women that won it for the Grizzlies and the Bobcats. You had to have at least a 3.2 grade point average, and you have to be an overall example of excellence both on and off the court. That's the criteria.
So Taryn Miller, a soccer player, again, the University of Montana, won the Big Sky Conference for the first time since 2011. She was the Defensive Player of the Year, an all-conference selection each of the last 2 seasons, and just outstanding all the way around to kind of put Montana's soccer team back into the NC2A tournament for the first time in about 8 years. And then Bobby Moorhead, if you follow basketball at all around the Big Sky Conference, you know what an integral part of that team that he was. And, you know, by record, probably the most prolific team in the history of the University of Montana. 52 wins in 2 seasons, 2 NC2A tournament appearances, just tremendous. And that entire senior class, was big time for the University of Montana, and Bobby Moorhead certainly a part of it, and getting it done in the classroom as well. And then no surprise at Montana State. Who are they? The track kids, the track athletes running out there getting 4.0s in rangeland ecology and a master's degree, and oh, by the way, jumping 25 feet, running the 400, and top placement in the Big Sky Conference. So tremendous work all the way around at all 4 of these kids.
Couple things worth noting: 3rd straight men's basketball player from Montana to win, which is really impressive. You don't want to go down the stereotyping road, but it's just a lot.
But when you say that, that's exactly what you're doing.
It's just a lot harder to have. I mean, Travis DeCuire's doing a great job, and he deserves to get a lot of credit for recruiting guys that are both phenomenal players and really good student athletes. Yeah. That is very difficult to do, but it's not only very difficult to do, it's also just not prioritized in Division I men's basketball. There's no such thing as a partial scholarship in Division I men's basketball. Right. You're giving a guy a full ride because of how good he is at hoops, almost period. Yeah, whereas Alex Lewis at Montana State is likely never been on a full ride, even though he is one of the best long jumpers in the entire conference and one of the best long jumpers in the entire Western United States. I mean, he went to the NCAA West Regionals each of the last 2 years. And I guarantee you the majority of his scholarship has been paid for because he's got a 4.0. And he's got his master's degree already, 4.0 for the duration of his career, which is incredibly impressive. And to earn a master's degree while also making the podium in both the indoor and outdoor championships, really impressive. But also a ton of credit deserved to the men's basketball players. Fabian Krislovic and Brandon Gfeller won these awards for Montana each of the last 2 years before Bobby Moorhead. A little more on Taryn Miller. Not only did she play in all 76 matches in her entire career, made 47 starts, she was a 4-time academic All-Big Sky Conference selection, a Scholar All-West Region as a junior and a senior, and she was the first Lady Grizz soccer player in a long time, maybe over a decade, to earn All-West Region honors, and she was the Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year as well as a first-team All-Big Sky selection each of the last 2 years. So that's incredibly impressive as well. And like you said, Elizabeth Krieger, she was an outstanding 400 runner who scored points in both the indoor and outdoor, but she got this accolade because of her academics, 4.0 in a ridiculous outdoor biology major.
Yeah, that's getting it done right there. People maybe maybe don't, but it's. I would say this pretty definitively. Maybe it's not fully objective the way math is just a logical fact of 1 and 1 is 2, but it is so much harder to get A's in your undergraduate than it is in your graduate work. When you go to grad school, the A is the presumed grade that you're going to get, and you have to do something flawed to jump out of that often. Whereas in the undergrad, whether it's a bell curve or whatever, you got to go earn the A.
Yep.
And
especially in a major like accounting, where you're talking about every test is going to be on a bell curve, right?
Right, exactly. And so, and again, not to take anything away whatsoever from Alex Lewis, because getting a master's, you're putting in the work.
When he got the 4.0 in the undergrad, which is the part that's the most impressive.
Stamping it. So
yeah, it's probably easy for him this year, right? I mean, in his master's program,
and roll, yeah. But easy and not easy.
Sure.
Okay, Colter, you wanted to talk a little bit. It's 210 and 1 is 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX, Montana Television. Howdy. A little bit about some all-conference selections. Yep. You got to vote. So this weekend, again, is the Big Sky Conference football kickoff weekend from Spokane. Again, Colter and I are going to be there Sunday, Monday. We will do the show from Spokane on Monday, which will be at the conclusion of a weekend that's going to be full of interviews with all 13 Big Sky Conference coaches will be there. Multiple players representing every school are going to be there. So a ton of folks all around it, athletic directors and so forth. So we got looking forward to being there. It's a fun time to get together. Also, a lot of work gets done, and it is also, this is the time where you turn in your your all-conference selections for the preseason group, and those announcements get made. And so let's go through here. You have a vote in this, so you put together your list of who you got. And let's, restrict it to the state of Montana, but a lot of Montana and Montana State football players represented on at least your preseason voting.
Totally. As part of this Around the Big Sky, I just got to make two notes quickly before we get into this. Trevin Smith, who was a great running back at Weber State, one of the most memorable players I've covered in my career, and a guy that was a battering ram. I think that there's still only 2 or 3 guys in the history of the league that have been first-team All-League 4 years in a row, and he was one of them. And he was the only player in the history of the Big Sky to rush for 1,000 yards each of his 4 seasons. He was the hammer on the 2008 Weber State team, which was the only team that beat Montana during their epic run between 2006 and 2009, where they went 31-1. Trevin Smith and the Weber State Wildcats beat Montana 41-24, I believe, in Ogden. Rainy day. Never forget that game. And Trevin Smith he was like he was one of those dudes where when you watch him, it doesn't matter who you cover or who you root for or anything. You're just like, dude, I like watching that guy play. It's like Joe Prothero from Cal Poly. You're like, dude, I got mad respect for that guy.
Yeah.
He passed away over the weekend. Shocking death. Nobody really knows why, what the cause was. 4 kids, which is makes it even more tragic. But he was a memorable guy. It's worth noting because I know people in Missoula and around Montana remember him because he was such an unbelievable player.
Yeah.
And the other one we have to mention is Malik Nashi from Northern Arizona. He was an all-conference guard last year, and he was found dead in his residence earlier this week. And it's a little bit of a disturbing string. It's a very sad string because there hasn't been an offseason where there hasn't been a Big Sky player that's died since we launched Skyline Sports, whether it was Kyle Smith and AJ Slaughter at Portland State or Andrew Harris and Cole Schwartz here at the University of Montana, Manny Caulfield at Montana State. And it's just always tough when guys are 20, 21 years old passing away. So condolences to everybody involved throughout the Big Sky Conference for those 2 young men. But on a positive note, our All Big Sky votes, I'll give you a couple that I think are interesting here. First of all, the way that this works is coaches nominate, and there's a list of players that you can choose from, but you can also vote for other players. And sometimes I like to go outside the box, just because. So, for example, a great outside the box one that I did. I voted Jace Lewis as a preseason All-League linebacker. I think Jace Lewis had a really good sophomore year. But I also think that the scheme Montana runs, combined with how productive the inside linebackers are required to be, combined with the fact that Dante Olson set the world on fire last year, so he's going to receive all the extra attention. I think Lewis is just primed for a big year. I think he's a really good player, but I also just think he's just straight up better than a lot of the other guys that were nominated. I think Cody Graves at Idaho State's a good player. I think that there's some other good inside linebackers, but I think Jace Lewis is just better.
Yeah.
So I voted him on there. He's not going to get it because I don't think anybody else is going to vote for him, but that's just my opinion. I think that Jace Lewis is primed for an all-league season.
Yeah.
A couple of the other maybe controversial ones. I think Dante Olson has a chance to be consensus defensive preseason player of the year.
Yeah,
I don't really know.
Not merely inside linebacker, player of the year.
Yeah, I don't really think I can't really think of who else you would even think to vote for. I mean, maybe Bryce Stirk after leading the league in sacks last year, but like Olson was just he was astoundingly good.
Yes.
Last year.
Yes.
And well deserved, but I think that the consensus, or I think that probably the votes for the offensive player of the year are going to be split between Eric Barriere at Eastern Washington and Jake Mayer at UC Davis. I voted Mayer as my first team quarterback, but I voted Barriere as my offensive player of the year. I think Barriere does more for Eastern Washington's offense, which is saying a lot because as we heard Dan Hawkins break down in the post-game press conference when UC Davis won here in Missoula, Jake Mayer is running an NFL offense. Tim Plow, the offensive coordinator at UC Davis, was on this show talking about how he puts more on Jake Mayer's plate than a lot of NFL quarterbacks have on their plates in terms of the line of scrimmage. And I think that's how you saw UC Davis, score 40-plus points in the last 16 minutes of the game here in Missoula is because of the adjustments Mayer made. That said, I think Barriere, by the end of the year, that game in May against Maine in the semifinals of the FCS playoffs that sent Eastern Washington National Championship game, that's as perfect of a game as a run-pass option quarterback that I've ever seen play in my life in person. The guy was absolutely lights out. I think he completed 21 of his first 22 passes. He ended up having 7 total touchdowns. He's absolutely unstoppable.
And that was a week after Maine just put the absolute lights out of Weber State. Now, let's not kid ourselves. Weber State's offense and Eastern Washington's offense are apples and oranges from a season ago. Weber State is a absolutely defensive first team where Eastern has always seemed to have a very prolific offense. But nonetheless, Maine looked like they were they looked like the best defense in the country, maybe outside of NDSU, and then they got absolutely lit up.
They got lit up. Yeah. And then we saw how good NDSU was, too, because they tossed Barriere around a little bit.
Yeah.
A couple other interesting position groups. I think that the running back position in the Big Sky Conference is absolutely stacked. You talk about Isaiah Alphonse and Elijah Dotson, who put on a freaking show here in Missoula from Sac State. Rushed for 280 yards, couple different 75-yard touchdowns in the first half. And those guys couldn't really sneak their way onto my list. I had my 2 running backs as Josh Davis from Weber State because he does it all.
Yep.
And in a pretty otherwise average offense, he is the offense. And then I voted for Alonzo Gilliam from UC Davis because they run such a pro-style offense that he catches the ball so much as well. The receiver position was interesting, too, because I only had 4 candidates, which is rare for the Big Sky because usually you're talking about 6, 7, 8, 9 guys. I only thought about 4. I thought about Sammy Akem and Jerry Lou McGee from Montana, and I thought about Mitch Guller and Mikey Dean from Idaho State. And then I thought, my old buddy Mike Ferreter is the common thread between these 4 guys. And that's pretty good. That's pretty good for your resume when you say, hey, I recruited and developed Sammy Akem and Jerry Lou McGee and then came over here and made Mikey Dean into Mikey Dean is 5'7" and he caught 10 touchdowns last year. Right. That shows you how well they use him. And I think that straight up pound for pound, with the exception of Akem, the best athlete in the league is Mitch Guller. Mitch Guller is a silly athlete. You just throw him the ball.
Yeah,
just throw him the ball.
He's an absolute stud, and obviously he played with his brother last year, and now he's going to be the only Guller on the team, but nonetheless a force to be reckoned with. Who's going to be the trigger man, I think, is the big question, or how good will they be down there in Pocatello?
As far as the other offensive guys, I voted Mitch Brott from Montana State as an offensive tackle. There's been sort of this gap of Montana-bred offensive linemen that went to the NFL that was never-ending and then sort of stopped. And he's kind of the latest guy that is going to maybe restart that. I don't necessarily know if he's going to be a surefire NFL guy, but he's going to have a shot. And I think that's cool as a guy out of Billings West who was a half-scholarship guy. The only other worth noting guy on the offense is I voted for Troy Anderson at fullback because Jeff Choate nominated him, and he's going to play a role in the offense. I don't think you can say he's going to be an all-conference quarterback or running back He was nominated as a fullback. Joe Prothero from Cal Poly and Brady May from Weaver State are not in the league. No one really else uses a fullback now unless Montana decides to bring one back. So I threw Troy Anderson on there, and we'll see if that pans out. Defensively, my linebackers are all Montana. I got Dante Olson and Jace Lewis as the inside guys. I got Troy Anderson and Bryce Stirk as the outside guys. People might blink an eye at saying Troy Anderson's never been a full-time linebacker. And I agree. I haven't seen Troy Anderson play much defense at all at the college level because he played for one spring coming out of his freshman year, and then he didn't play at all this spring. He was shut down. He had a little bit of a shoulder procedure, and but the defense that they run combined with the talent that the kid has, I don't know if he'll get the nod on defense, but I felt comfortable enough just knowing what kind of competitor he is to put him up there. And again, so much of this is scheme too, right? Like the inside guys at Montana have so much more on them, just like the outside guys at Montana State, because they're running an odd man front. The edge guys, I mean, Stirk does everything. He's hand in the dirt, standing up. They're going to move him around this year. They're going to play him on the inside. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how he does all that. And then the other notable position, I voted for Jacquay Allen and Braden Conkle, both from Montana State at safety. I thought they were both honorable mention safeties last year. Thought they got jobbed. I don't necessarily know if they both deserve to be first team, but I think Jacquay Allen, leading the league in picks, should have been better than honorable mention. And I think that Braden Conkle, I think with the exception of Troy Anderson, Braden Conkle's best player on Montana State. Pound for pound, I think he can just do so much. So it'll be interesting to see how all the votes play out. And I think that the most striking part about this in terms of the trends is that you don't have any offensive or defensive linemen from the Grizzlies, even in consideration for votes. Maybe Jesse Sims. But other than that, there's no one that I've really even thought about. And I think that is a microcosm of the state of Montana right now. I mean, you have elite talent. Dalton Sneed is an elite talent. Sammy Akem, Jerry Lou McGee, elite talent. Dante Olson, elite talent. I think they have some young guys. Robbie Houck is a guy I considered at safety as well. He would be my number 3 safety behind those other two guys. I just gave them the nod because they're seniors. But to not have any linemen from Montana, that is, if you would have told me that would have been the case 10 years ago, I would have said there's no way. But we were you interviewed Joe Glenn the other week, and I was talking with my brother about the Joe Glenn offensive lines because we were looking through some old stats, looking at Johansi Humphrey's stats. And, you're talking about Brad Rhodes and Garth Enger and Corey Proctor and John Skinner and Thatcher Slay. That's like a first-team All-Big Sky offensive line right there. Every single one of those guys would be one of the best offensive linemen in the league right now, and most of them are from Montana. So it'll be interesting to see if Montana can get that portion of this back. And that's why I pointed out Mitch Brott, because I think that's the type of guy that both programs have to have. The guy who's the 6'4", 255-pounder coming out of high school, who's a half-ride guy, who's not really getting recruited by anybody else, who puts in the work, doesn't get hurt, gets playing time early, can develop, and then boom, 4 years later, he's a team captain like Mitch Brott is. He's an NFL prospect. That's what Montana gives you, is the raw guy who's not on any FBS radar, who then becomes, a mean hog molly like you want him to be.
It's the state of the game. What on offense? What did Joe Glenn run a lot of? Right?
Sure. Right.
How much of the eye do you see anymore in football?
Right. Totally.
Almost none. So that dictates, it doesn't dictate, but it does alter to an extent what it is that you want or need out of an offensive lineman. And similarly, the defenses have changed and all these hybrid guys, and you can move them around. Is he an edge rusher? Is he an outside linebacker? Hard to say. Both. All. So right. The just get the biggest, strongest guy that you can find to play offensive guard is no longer just that signed, sealed, and delivered. That's what we're looking for.
Sure.
That said, when you talk about the University of Montana not having a guy that would be just an obvious presumptive on the list somewhere, on either side of the ball is not a development that I think many people would have expected, even with a change not obviously a drastic change in the style of football from the Bob Stitt years, but also the change to football at large and what has happened there, which I think has taken some of the emphasis off of, not the emphasis, it's still, I think, as important as it needed to be, but it's important in different ways than it used to be. And so it's not, you don't assess it in some of those same ways, but still, it seems to be, is there a more critical position group that's actually a group of guys, not just an individual like a running back or a quarterback, than the offensive and defensive line? I don't know that there is.
It's hard to be a good football team if you aren't good on the lines. It's just no matter what else is you have to at least be good, if not great. But I also think, especially in an FCS program in a state like Montana, where the ethos is so predicated on toughness, you have to have an alpha dog offensive lineman. You got to have a dude that can walk out to the center of the field for the coin toss, and you're like, well, that's what offensive linemen from Montana look like. And think about the string of guys, starting with, even if you just look at the last 20 years, from Thatcher Slay on one end all the way to guys like Danny Kistler and John Schmang on the other end. And the Grizzlies haven't had one of those guys in the last couple of years. And again, a couple of years ago, I thought that Chad Germer did one of his greatest coaching jobs, taking converted tight ends like Cooper Sprunk and Mike Ralston and making them into pretty solid offensive linemen. But you need that William Pales that you walk out there where people are like, well, that's the type of guy that Montana gets. He's 6'8", 350.
Well, if you got William Pales, yeah, maybe you do just want the biggest, strongest guy you can find.
Like Montana State, right? Like you just send J.P. Flynn to the middle of the field for the coin toss.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? That's the thing that's funny. I digress here, but Montana State's got 6 captains this year. None of them are named Bryce Stirk. If I'm Jeff Choate, I'm just sending Bryce Stirk to the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Send him out there for the coin toss. Let the other captains rotate. Why wouldn't you want Bryce Stirk standing out there?
I don't know why you wouldn't.
It's just like the Grizz. Send Jesse Sims.
Right.
Just send him.
Yep.
Just send him to the middle of the field.
Yep. We're only 50 days away. 40. Is it 4? Maybe it's 50.
From what?
From day one of college football in the Big Sky Conference.
Oh, man.
Missouri State University at Northern Arizona and Northern Colorado at San Jose State get a start. What if the Bears take down the Spartans of San Jose State?
Well, Northern Colorado has like a 7th-year quarterback in Jacob Knipp. I kid sort of, but I feel so bad for Jacob Knipp because he was great his redshirt freshman year, and he suffered the same shoulder injury over and over and over again. It's the exact injury where you get sacked from the side and you fall, and you break your clavicle or sprain your AC joint. And he's done it, no kidding, 4 years in a row.
Anyway,
but no, the Bears are not beating San Jose State. I'm not sure the Bears are beating anybody this year, unfortunately.
I'm not sure if San Jose State's beating anybody anymore. I'm
Truth.
not sure they'll have a team by the time the season rolls around. Maybe just a forfeit 1-0 start for the Northern Colorado Bears. Thursday, those are Thursday games, August 29th, and then the first Saturday of college football, the 31st of August. How about that? The last day of the year. Southern Oregon is at Sacramento State. Weber State goes to San Diego State. Far different from San Jose State for Weber. That'll be an interesting game, actually. I'm looking forward to seeing that game. San Diego goes to Cal Poly. Portland State is at Arkansas. Southern Utah at UNLV. Eastern Washington gets to head into the doghouse, play the University of Washington. UC Davis gets Cal. Montana State, as we've noted, is in Lubbock, Texas at Texas Tech, and the University of Montana heads to South Dakota. The Joe Glenn Bowl, we could call that. With the Grizzlies in South Dakota, and then the one that I wanted to say for last. What are there going to be 150 college football games in the first? Well, at the if you include FCS, 250 college football games in the first week of the season. None will be a bigger blowout than Idaho at Penn State. Penn State Nittany Lions hosting your Idaho Vandals week 1.
It's
70?
It's honestly brutal. Oh no,
75?
no. The Idaho lost 80-8 at Florida State back when they were playing FCS Independent. That's in the cards. Well, that's 72. Yeah. Oh, you're talking spread. I thought you were asking me how many points Penn State's going to score. Penn State's going to score as many points as they want.
However many they want.
And they will give up less than 10. Or maybe less than any. That's it. We'll do a more extrapolated segment on this whole thing Later on in the
on
week.
the Big Ten Network, boys and girls. Mark your calendars, 12 noon on the Big Ten
You're just
Network.
inviting people to watch a massacre.
I know, Penn State. Got to get it. You think I won't have that on the DVR? Believe me, at 3:30 in the morning on Sunday, September 1st, when I'm still just elbows deep in college football, and I'm like, okay, let's see what happened. And I put this game on. It's just going to be giggles for me.
We'll do a little bit more of an extrapolated segment later on in the week. I'll give you my picks as far as how we voted for the preseason polls. But it's no secret that playing FBS games is the lifeblood of the FCS period.
Yeah.
And most Big Sky teams have to play at least one. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the Cats and the Grizz play one. Sometimes they don't. Just depends on if they can get a quality FCS in town where they can make a little money, depending on what the payout is. But I cannot remember a year where there's been so many Power 5 FBS games on the schedule. I mean, you talk about some frightening opponents. I mean, Eastern Washington almost beat UW a couple years ago. Well, Cooper Kupp doesn't play for Eastern Washington anymore. Washington's the real deal right now. I mean, Chris Peterson's got it straight rolling. You talk about playing at Washington, Penn State, Texas Tech, Cal, Arkansas, Washington State, Arizona. I mean, there is a lot of Oregon. I mean, there's a lot of Pac-12s. But the thing is, though, the Idaho Penn State game is one of the great scheduling anomalies I've ever seen, because schools like Penn State and Ohio State, they do not play FCS schools. The SEC schools have done this thing where they give themselves their little bye. They go play Gardner-Webb before the SEC championship game, or they go play Gardner-Webb before the Iron Bowl. Alabama and Auburn do it all the time,
right. Yep.
because of the busing and all that kind of stuff. But to bring in an FCS school from across the country and pay them $1.2 million, it would never happen. This game has just been on the schedule since Idaho was an FBS school. And so now you have a situation where you just got to go in there and just pray. Because what are you going to do at Happy Valley if you're the Idaho Vandals?
Well, lose would be the thing that comes to my mind.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River. Hey everybody, Ryan Tutel, and I'm here with Josh of the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, there's a lot of lawyers in this area. What makes you different?
At the Advocates, we primarily focus on injury cases. That gives us the experience and the knowledge to correctly evaluate your case and work with insurance companies and other attorneys so you get exactly what you deserve to make you whole again. We take really good care of our clients, and we're going to fight for every single dollar you deserve.
Call 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump. Ooh, pump it up. Pump it up.
There's lots of fun to be had this summer. Get your wings at Town Pump with Red Bull Energy 12-ounce, 3 for only $7. Be refreshed and delighted anytime with any size fountain drink for just $1. Town Pump is right down the road. What are you waiting for?
Town Pump. Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
In western Montana, we know shopping local matters, but we also know that you're going to pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it. Well, not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with a staff of specialists that can answer any question. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and, are you ready, lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
Everybody knows that high school sports generate suspense, excitement, and drama.
They also generate higher grade point averages, stronger work habits, and greater self-esteem.
Everybody knows that high school sports give us more value for our entertainment dollar.
They also give us leaders committed to strengthening communities right here in Montana. The true value of playing sports in school can't be measured in wins and losses or dollars and cents. Studies show that participation in sports, along with other extracurricular activities, is one of the best ways to teach leadership, cooperation, accountability, and other invaluable life skills. Don't just stand on the sidelines. Encourage the young people you know to get in the game. When you do, you'll be helping them get ahead in life. High school sports, a winning part of a complete education. This message presented by the Montana High School Association and the Montana Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. Taryn Miller and Bobby Moorhead have been named the University of Montana's recipients of the Big Sky Conference Scholar Athlete Awards for 2018-19. Each Big Sky school selects one female and one male who displays all-around excellence. The recipient must graduate with at least a 3.2 GPA or better. Miller capped her soccer career by leading the Grizzlies to the NC2A tournament in November, following their first Big Sky Conference tournament championship since 2011. She was one of 5 Montana players voted to the all-tournament team. She was the first-team All-Big Sky selections each of the last 2 seasons and was the Defensive Player of the Year.
Moorhead finished his Grizz men's basketball career by playing in a school record 134 games, including 73 starts. He earned the Grizzlies' internal Defensive Player of the Year honor each of the last 2 seasons, serving as UM stopper during a stretch that saw the Grizz win a school record 52 games combined over the last 2 seasons and advance to the last 2 NCAA tournaments.
A pair of track stars earned Montana State's Scholar Athlete Awards. Elizabeth Krieger earned the Women's Award for the Bobcats after scoring at the Big Sky Indoor and Outdoor Championships in the 400 meters. She also got a bachelor's degree in Natural Resources and Rangeland Ecology with a 4.0 GPA.
And finally, Alex Lewis is the male Scholar Athlete for Montana State, set the school record with a long jump of 25.2, also earned a master's degree in accounting with a 4.0 GPA.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Time for a little prep extra segment. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. July is Kurt's 30th birthday. 30 years they've been in business, and they're celebrating by offering 30%, that's right up to 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna and Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month for Kurt's 30-year anniversary sale. Coulter, a couple of little updates or significant updates, depending on who you are and how you go. At the high school level, starting with Orly, getting a new position for their athletic director, who is going to take a spot with the MHSA. This is our prep extra segment brought to us by the Farmer State Bank.
So, yeah, the Arlee athletic director, Amy Bartles, is leaving her post as the Arlee athletic director, coincidentally or not, given the controversial firing of Zanen Pitts. Or resignation, yeah. I mean, forcing out. It's a muddy situation, to say the least.
Yes, it is.
With Zanen Pitts. We have talked about it extensively on the show, so we'll leave that alone. Regardless, she's taking a cool position, regardless of the reason she's leaving Arlee. I think the position she's taking is an intriguing one, and that is to be the social media coordinator for the Montana High School Association, which there's a lot of action on Twitter during state tournaments and stuff like that from media, people like us. And
hashtag MT Scores is unequivocally the best thing that has ever happened to getting scores around the state of Montana at the high school level.
Yeah, I go hard on hashtag MT Scores on Friday nights during the fall.
Yes.
Give me that update.
What's going on?
Tell me who's winning.
Tell me what's up.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because, I mean, how else you can get information from Shoto?
It is crazy that the MHSA, the governing body of high school sports in the state of Montana, would not be the ones perpetuating that information. I mean, it's basically up to the individual reporters who are at these games to basically do it out of their goodwill. Maybe they're trying to generate some followers, whatever it is, but to put that stuff out there like that, which is good of them. But it is remarkable to me, the lack of coalescence of information, particularly things like scores, that does not exist at the high school level across the state of Montana, given this thing we call the internet. I mean, it's just stunning that it has not been done.
It's amazing. I think that the newspapers still receive faxes.
No doubt. Well, here's the thing. This isn't any – I'm not pointing the finger here when I say it's remarkable it hasn't been done. I'm not saying the MHSA hasn't done it. I don't know that all of a sudden having a social media person there is going to make that happen. First of all, they need this, so this is good. But what's the hardest thing in the world? Getting some athletic directors at schools to give information about their schools. Or whether it's a parent, if it's Class C, you know what I mean? What's going on? Are you keeping track of anything that, we can put together here? I mean, it's just exposure for your school, for your players, coaches, et cetera. You would presumably want to have that if you have it. And yet, all right, we went and saw the game. Now we went home, and that's it. And there's not really a thought that, maybe there's people outside of this spot that would be interested in what happened here today.
It'd be progress nonetheless.
Yes,
and it sounds like an interesting position. And on the Arlee side of things, a lot of change at Arlee, despite the massive success that they've had, especially in boys and girls basketball over the last couple of years. A couple other news updates. Stillwater softball coach John Smith has retired after 18 seasons, I guess 19 seasons. Bad math by me on the headline. But Stillwater is a co-op between Columbus, Park City, and Absaroka. They won the BC State Championships in 2007, 2008, 2009, and 2011. And that's among the most in the division. Florence is the only other school that has more than that in the small school division for softball. But John Smith probably more remembered as the head football coach at Columbus High for 25 years. Most notably, they won the 1992 state championship, but also he coached Dwan Edwards. And Dwan Edwards, anybody that knows that story, is one of the great athletes to ever come out of Montana. We talked about this on the show the other day. It's so interesting to me how the in-state guys that go to the Montana schools get remembered with such reverence, which is great, and they should. Guys like Chase Reynolds and Mark Mariani. For whatever reason, Dwan Edwards doesn't get remembered in the same vein, even though Dwan Edwards was a 3-year starter and all Pac-12 D tackle at Oregon State, a second-round draft pick out of a Class B school in Montana. He's obviously drafted out of Oregon State, but he played for Dennis Erickson at Oregon State, and then he played in the league for 11 years. He was the D tackle on the Panthers when they were in the Super Bowl in the early 2000s. He was the D tackle in front of Ray Lewis during Ray Lewis's last several years with the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, the guy is an absolute stud. He's not just a roster member for an NFL team. This guy's a 9-year starter.
Yeah.
I mean, a multiple time really productive player. So
I will say, not to rain on your parade, there's a lot of guys who were D tackles in front of Ray Lewis that wondered if this was the right career choice. Should I have done this? I could have just gone into accounting like my mom told me, and it could have been fine for me.
Yep, just opening up holes for Ray to run sideline to sideline.
Good gracious.
Last piece of news. This is a cool one. Trevor Paro, who I know you and Tucker talked about on your show because of his ridiculous statistics back in 2016 for the Hot Springs Savage Heat, one of the great names in all of Montana high school sports. This kid scored 56 touchdowns when Hot Springs won the state C championship. He ended his career with 135 scores. Those shattered Chase Reynolds' records, which I thought would never be broken.
Never be touched.
And he was a great athlete at Hot Springs. He was an all-state competitor in football, basketball, and track and field. There's no high school baseball in Montana. This kid basically got himself on a traveling team between Spokane and Coeur d'Alene, played baseball on the weekends, ends up going to Lower Columbia College in Longview, Washington, which is a 2-year college. And last weekend, he earned a full ride to Marshall. So he's going straight D1 out of Hot Springs, Montana, in a sport he didn't even play in high school.
Wow.
That is a cool story.
That's a great story. Yeah, great story. We'll definitely want to track him as we go. This is our Prep Extra segment. It's brought to us by the Farmers State Bank. Hey, link your Farmers State debit card to the MyCard app, and you can shut off your debit card right from your phone. Safe, secure, instant. When you locate your card, turn it on again. That easy. MyCard app, Farmers State Bank. Quick break, come back. Hey, the All-Star Game coming up at the top of the hour. We're going to have it for you here on ESPN Radio. Love the All-Star Game. We'll talk about it a little bit after this. RecCon. Been talking about RecCon on the show. It is July 19th and 20th. It is at the Fort Missoula. It is where outdoor recreation and conservation meet. You see how they're doing this? Recreation, conservation. Dozens of exhibitors from gear manufacturers to outdoor nonprofits going to be there. Outdoor learning labs throughout the day for people to learn more about the products and initiatives of various groups. Tons of stuff for the whole family. Lots of cool off-road vehicles that you can check out. There's an exhibitor area that's open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. both days. Beer from Big Sky Brewing. Food trucks. Got to have all of that. Limited camp spots are also available, so you can get in there now if you would like to show at RecCon. Online, RecConMontana.com. RecCon, RECCON, Montana.com. Go check it out. Again, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., July 19th and 20th, next Friday and Saturday. Go check it out, RecCon.
8-2-tell Nuanez here. Can't tell you how many times we've heard the face for radio joke since we came on SWX television, but it's been a fun endeavor so far.
And now our esteemed producer Tommy is pushing the envelope even further. We got our own YouTube channel.
That's right. If you want to watch us every day from your computer, your tablet, your cell phone, you can check out 2Tell Nuanez on YouTube.
2Tell Nuanez, live every weekday from 4 to 6 in the afternoons on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula, SWX Montana statewide, and now around the planet Earth on YouTube.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce two of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get up to $150 instant rebate on 4 backcountry MT or AT tires, or $50 on 4 road control passenger tires. Les Schwab tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
We ate a lot of steaks before we came up with the Montana Club's Private Reserve Cut Angus. It's as good a steak as you're going to get. Our Private Reserve Cut Angus is specially cut for us. And with our custom seasoning, it has a flavor that's absolutely incomparable. We're confident that it will satisfy the most discriminating steak customer for an unrivaled steak experience. Real Montana, real food. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Okay. This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
AmeriCorps Montana is your opportunity to take the path less traveled, to break the status quo, to stop talking about the problems and be the solution. Join AmeriCorps and create your own future. As an AmeriCorps member, you can inspire youth, serve people in need, be part of improving Montana's landscapes, and more, all while gaining professional experience. AmeriCorps is your moment to be the greater good. Visit joinamericorps.gov to learn more.
Brought to you by the Montana Office of Community Service and this station.
Ryan 2Tell here. Throughout the rest of the summer, ESPN Radio and Widmer Brothers Brewing are teaming up to broadcast 2Tell Nuanez from all over Missoula.
Register at select locations to win tickets for when the Grizz take on the Oregon Ducks. Beginning on July 18th, 2Tell Nuanez will be drawing winners for tickets to the big game, beginning with a live broadcast from Katie O'Keefe's. Come on down to Katie O'Keefe's and check out their remodeled bar. Enjoy one of the new 16-ounce Widmer Brothers Hefeweizen cans.
And then maybe you'll get picked to head to Autzen Stadium for the Grizz Ducks football game.
If it matters to Missoula, it matters to us. Ryan 2Tell and Colter Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio. 2Tell Nuanez, live on the stream at 1029ESPN.com. The stream is available thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. Now for the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan 2Tell and Colter Nuanez.
Sorry, we're talking amongst ourselves out here, okay? Don't worry, we have not forgotten about you. Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you? We're just talking about the ways we can keep Tommy from getting mad.
Yes, that's what we're brainstorming, how to keep Tommy calm. It's a hard thing to do.
We are very creative. We have a lot of strengths. Operating the radio machine, it's somewhere around average.
Any machine. Oh, that's generous. I would say
I'm good at operating the computer machine. in certain ways.
Oh, you are. You're good with your machine.
I
I'm
am.
bad with all of them. If you got to plug it in, I'm out. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday. It's 30 years they've been in business, and they're celebrating by offering 30%. That's right, 30% off MSRP on select vehicles and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna or Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month for Kurt's 30-year anniversary sale. If you missed anything in the show, we got you covered, boys and girls. The podcast, the Tutel Nuanez podcast, it's out there in the ether. It's wherever you get podcasts. You get the Tutel Nuanez podcast. You listen to it. You like it. You love it. You come back for more. It is brought to us by the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. We are just moments away from the 2019 All-Star Game. Love the All-Star Game. And what I love about the All-Star Game is baseball is a team sport that's played by individuals. It's not a team sport that's played by teams as such. If you're just great at what you do, you help your team, period. If you had Russell Westbrook, he would be the highest paid player and probably the most coveted player in baseball because he's so good by himself. The reason he's still an elite player, the reason he's not coveted in that same way is because you've got to be good with others when you play basketball and football, not so much when you play baseball. That's why give me all the best dudes and let them play against each other. Hello, the All-Star Game. They've done it. I love it. So we're going to take a look at this. Here's the thing, though, that I want to do on our way out of here, Coulter. The people talked about, well, why are home runs so important anymore? Nobody's hitting line drives, and nobody's hitting for average and all that. If you want to know what's going on, Alex Bregman, third baseman for the Astros, he'll be playing tonight. 300 was the benchmark, Coulter, to hit for average. If you could hit 300,
still is. Sure,
still is. Alex Bregman about that. Quote: "If I wanted to hit 300, I'd hit 300, but it's an OPS game." It's about driving the baseball and getting on base, walks, and extra base hits. If it turned into an average game, I'd get the ball out on the air and hit line drives, out of the air and hit line drives and hit 330. First of all, great line. I mean, just like, look, if I want to go hit 330, I'll hit 330. Leave me alone. I'm trying to yank it out of here and get walks. And I think this is so telling. In fact, he goes on to say, all the hitters care about now is OPS. We don't care about batting average. Some guys do, I guess. Batting average is an old stat that doesn't matter. It's OPS, runs created, WAR. Look at guys like Mike Trout's numbers. There are guys that hit 340. Trout's hitting what? 300 on the dot? I'd rather have Mike Trout's numbers.
First of all, what a baseball guy thing to say.
Totally. If I want to hit 300, if I want to hit 330, I'll do it. Leave me alone. Shut up with your batting average stat. What's it, 1999?
Also, the Trout point is amazing, and I also think that it's so crazy that Mike Trout has reached this point of transcendence that he's leading the league in home runs and RBI, and everybody's like, well, yeah, okay. Like we're talking about Christian Yelich and Cody Bellinger and Pete Alonso and Josh Bell and all these guys. Nobody's talking about Mike Trout, even though Mike Trout is on pace to have his best power numbers season of his career. And like Bregman said, he's still hitting 300.
We did 15 minutes on Vlad Guerrero Jr., who's been in the league for 11 seconds because he hit 91 home runs yesterday. You know what Mike Trout's done? Turned down every invite to the home run derby. You know what I don't do? I don't begrudge him for that. That's fine. Do what you want to do. I like that about him, but guess what you don't do? You don't get on this very prestigious radio show. That's what happens. You get left out of it until the very end when you're mentioned by another player in a comment. Boys and girls, it's All-Star Tuesday. Enjoy the All-Star Game on ESPN Radio. It's the American League against the National League. That's still how they divvy it up. From Cleveland, Ohio. Enjoy the game. We'll see you tomorrow. Tutel Nuanez.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, pump it up, pump it up.
Stop into Town Pump this summer for all your cold beverages. Enjoy your cold one at the lake or on the porch. Pick up Miller & Coors 12-pack cans, 2 for $20. Enjoy summer for longer with Mix and Match 5-hour energy shots, 2 for $5 at your Town Pump.
Town Pump, right down the road. Pump it up, oh yeah.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, but we also know that you're going to pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it. Well, not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with a staff of specialists that can answer any question. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and, are you ready, lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com. Hey folks, Ryan Tutel, and I'm here with Josh of The Advocates. Josh, do most injury accidents end up in court?
Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court through a fair negotiation with an insurance company. However, sometimes it is necessary. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get a fair settlement. Luckily, most personal